The capital's mornings had a special talent for tightening Aldo's stomach. His worn leather bag held a manometer, inspection catalysts, and the paperwork he hated most, the inspection notices stamped with the Bureau's crest. His job title was Magical Barrier Equipment Inspector. It sounded noble. Checking the invisible protective walls that layered the capital against monsters and enemy magic. In reality, it meant being the hated tax collector who showed up every 3 months to extort exorbitant maintenance fees. The office door opened to stale air and dead fish eyes. Colleagues schemed to offload difficult sites onto someone else. Ah, Aldo. Perfect timing. Chief Belays wore the smile of someone handing off a losing lottery ticket. Today's list: the Western Blacksmith Guild, the Southern Wholesale Market, and this special one, the Royal Monster Ecology Research Lab. The smithy meant heat and noise that scrambled measuring equipment, plus dwarven curses. The market meant unsanitary conditions and haggling merchants. The lab meant literal life or death work if the barrier faltered. The monsters inside would escape. Chief, I did this site last month too. Must be your imagination. Be grateful you have a job. Public contract, remember? Aldo trudged out. At the smithy, a soot-faced dwarf sneered. You again. Tax-wasting scum. The law requires it. Every 3 months. Aldo held up his meter to the wall-mounted mana stone. The needle trembled. There's a crack in the 4th layer of the physical barrier. Resonance wherefrom your furnace vibration. You need a stone replacement and vibration dampening neutralizer. What? We just replaced it. You know how much that cost? About 3 gold coins, parts and labor included. The dwarf screamed. Aldo absorbed it stoically, weeping inside. Most of the fee went to the Royal Mana Department, not his pocket. But if he cut corners, in 6 months the wall would explode and these people would die. He stamped inspected requires repair and moved on. By afternoon, he passed through the gates of the Royal Monster Ecology Research Lab. The staff were cold but professional. Inspector. Wear protective gear. The Chimera juveniles are in a bad mood. The lab assistant said this while chewing bread. Deep in the facility, a 2-meter-wide mana stone pulsed with pale blue light. Aldo ran his fingers along its base. Dangerous as this was, he couldn't deny the beauty of the advanced circuitry, the complex geometric patterns he'd once dreamed of studying. Reality had turned that dream into budget negotiations and complaint handling. No abnormalities. Some sediment in the mana bypass. I'll clean it. Appreciated. If it's within budget, go ahead. The words treated him like a professional. That was rare. By evening, his day's earnings were curses from a dwarf, the cold air of a research lab, and a handful of receipt stubs. Drink myself home, maybe. In the empty alley, he stretched. Tomorrow, he'd go see someone else's angry face. The capital's barrier absorbed his sigh and glimmered on, silent and. There's a cautionary tale passed down among inspectors. Years ago, one inspector cut corners in the lower district. Concentrated mana leaked into the sewer. And a stray slime slipped through the gap. Fed on the mana. Multiplied overnight. Overflowed every toilet and kitchen in dozens of homes. Dissolved furniture, and sent residents into a panic. The Great Slime Incident. The inspector who caused it was supposedly still doing forced labor in a mine. So Aldo couldn't afford to slack off, no matter how much his head throbbed. His first stop, Lazarus Antiques, tucked deep in a winding alley in the southwest. 3 barriers were registered here: fire prevention, theft detection, and a regional defense relay. The shop was famous in the inspector's gossip network, a site nobody wanted to visit twice. The clientele was non-existent, yet the owner lived too well. And the barrier maintenance was suspiciously perfect. A dry bell chimed as Aldo entered. The air was dusty. Shelves held suspicious urns and chipped blades. Behind the counter, a thin man with glasses appeared: Lazarus. His eyes smiled, but his gaze pinned Aldo's bureau-emblazoned bag. My. Inspector. Your inspection is 3 days early. I do appreciate punctuality. Apologies. Tight schedules. Aldo, Royal Barrier Conservation Bureau. Regular inspection. Aldo kept his tone businesslike. Lazarus gestured him in with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The theft deterrence barrier's core was alarmingly smooth. Normal civilian barriers always had microleaks or noise. This one was polished like a mirror. Military-grade tuning intended to block detection magic and remote eavesdropping. The output resistance was 5 times the legal limit. Sir, this configuration doesn't match your registration. The interference resistance exceeds standards by 5 times. Lazarus had appeared silently behind him. Aldo didn't turn around. Some antiques are delicate magical tools. External noise devalues them. Is that a problem? A low voice. Aldo knew he could report this as an illegal modification. But inspectors had an unspoken priority: staying alive. The rumors about inspectors who never came back from this shop were loud enough. No functional issue. But at this output, your mana stone consumption must be brutal. Money is no concern when buying safety. Lazarus returned to the counter, where a heavy leather pouch sat. Bribe money. Silence payment. Aldo ignored it and headed for the real target: the regional defense barrier relay. Behind a massive wardrobe, the relay was a critical component of the capital's defense. If it broke, a pinhole gap would open in the capital's shield. Parasitic monster spores could drift through and wipe out the neighborhood. Aldo knelt and pried open the wall panel. The core was discolored. Overloaded. The owner's illegal barriers were siphoning mana from the official relay. Sir, this relay is about to burn out. Any idea why? Silence. The shop's temperature dropped. Inspector. Aldo, was it? You're very competent. I see that. But the last inspector wrote no abnormalities and left. That makes this your problem, doesn't it? I'm here to do my job. If this relay bursts, the Bureau's emergency alarm goes off, and armed knights storm this shop. That would be far more inconvenient for you, wouldn't it? Not a threat. A fact. Lazarus's eyes flickered. For a man in his line of work, a formal night incursion was the last thing he wanted. TCH. What's needed for repairs? An official replacement core application, and redistribution of the mana flow. You'll need to throttle whatever you're running on the side. And Aldo scrawled a figure on parchment. 6 gold coins. Official bureau payment. I'll waive the emergency surcharge. Lazarus glared. Then he exhaled. That's it? Cheap mouth. I'm here to inspect. Nothing more, nothing less. Young man. A word of advice from an old man pushing too hard in this capital is a short-lived strategy. Lazarus paid grudgingly and agreed to throttle his side operation. Aldo replaced the relay stone with trembling hands. By the time the work was done, his shirt was soaked. Alive. I'm alive. I thought my skull would end up on display next to the antiques. He stepped out into evening twilight. His report would read, Lazarus Antiques. Confirmed age-related relay deterioration. Stone replacement completed same day. No abnormalities. The truth would sink, once again, into the invisible cracks beneath the Capitol. The Adventurers Guild headquarters reeked before Aldo even passed through the gate. Iron like blood. Sour rotting organs, and a chemical cleaning agent trying desperately to mask it all. The Guild's barrier served two purposes, containing the miasma released during monster dismantling, and preventing evil spirits and parasitic breeds from escaping the carcasses. At the entrance, scarred adventurers drank and laughed. To them, Aldo was just a bureaucrat skimming inspection fees off their hard-earned rewards. Hey, Inspector. Come to sniff around? Sniff out some gold for me too. A beer-bellied man grabbed at him. Crude laughter erupted. Aldo silently showed his identification. Arguing was pointless. These people lived in a world where strength was everything. The delicate work of maintaining invisible safety meant nothing to them. He hurried through the chaos to the back dismantling room. The floor was a lake of monster blood. Dismantlers worked methodically, indifferent to the gore. Blackened mana stones lined the walls at even intervals, the miasma barrier's catalysts. Aldo approached the filthiest one. The stone's surface was coated in thick monster fat. The needle of his meter trembled in the danger zone. He found the dismantling chief, an old one-eyed man named Garum holding a massive cleaver. What is it, Aldo? I'm busy. Make it quick. I can't make it quick. Zone 7's barrier output is down 30%. Insufficient cleaning. I wrote about this last time. Clean it, and an hour later it's splashed again. Worry about fine details, and I can't process 1,000 carcasses a day. That fine detail is causing the market vendors outside to complain of unexplained headaches. The leaked miasma is riding the wind. If this continues, the guild could face a suspension order. The word suspension made Garum's eye twitch. Fine. I'll swap the stones. No. The stones are still viable. But this grease requires a solvent. And there's a crack in the base. You must have hit it moving a large monster. Aldo pointed at the wall, where faint purple smoke miasma hissed through. Sighing, he pulled out his cleaning spatula and expensive alcohol solvent. This was the facility owner's job, but if he left it to them, it would never get done. Special service. I'll handle the emergency cleaning and crack repair. In return, replace the protective railing by next week. He plunged his hands into the sludge and began scrubbing. Nausea rose. The miasma tingled and numbed his fingertips. The adventurers were lost in heroic tales, unaware how fragile the foundation beneath their feet really was. Nimble fingers for a bureaucrat. Garum shoved a small bottle of ale at him. Thank you. But I'm on duty. After I finish. Aldo didn't wipe his hands. He kept working. His stomach ached, but he had a feeling the ale would help. One night's sleep hadn't erased the beast stench from Aldo's clothes. But today's sight might be worse. The Royal First Botanical Garden sprawled across the northern hills. A vital medical research hub and a cradle for magical plants that couldn't grow in the wild. Its barrier was fundamentally different from others. Not for keeping enemies out, but for maintaining an internal climate. The mana-charged plants resonated with the barrier's frequency, growing at abnormal rates and releasing murderous amounts of magical pollen. Achoo! The moment he passed through the gate, his nasal passages mounted a fierce defense. Ah, Aldo. You look terrible. This will help. The head administrator, Elin, offered a suspicious green liquid. He declined politely. Last time, it had made his nostrils feel like they were breathing fire. The greenhouse amplifier is the main item today, right? Yes. Some silvergrass has been absorbing too much mana. It glows at night now. Neighbors are complaining. Tears streaming, Aldo raised his meter and pushed through the jungle-like foliage. Step trigger moss crackled underfoot. Sticky nectar vines hung overhead, waiting to snare prey. Achoo! Damn it. The meter's needle was going haywire, confused by the plant's living mana. This was why everyone hated botanical garden inspections. You couldn't logic your way through a barrier mixed with living organisms. It required the touch of a person soothing a fussy baby. He reached the central relay stone. The barrier waveform was spiky. Elin, did you change the fertilizer recently? Yes, a new chimera compost. Why? That's it. The magical components are dissonant with the barrier frequency. The plants are overreacting, glowing, throwing pollen. Aldo manually adjusted the meter's sensitivity. Circuit by circuit, filtering out the compost's mana signature. Meticulous work. His nose was blocked, his eyes bloodshot, his throat raw. Through the greenhouse glass, he saw the main street. Well-dressed nobles and carefree shoppers enjoyed the spring weather. They had no idea that an inspector with a runny nose was fighting mana circuits to keep demonic spores from taking root in their lungs. Why am I doing this? The emptiness hit him. 3 years in this job. Thanks were rare, abuse was daily. His student friends were night squad leaders and successful merchants with glittering achievements. All done. It won't glow tonight. The pollen should settle in a few days. His voice was thick with congestion. You saved me, Aldo. Here a tonic made from leftover herbs. Side effect, your skin might turn slightly blue. But your fatigue will vanish. Thank you. He accepted the blue bottle with a dead expression, wanting desperately to refuse. By the time he left the garden, his mental stamina was at 0. Tomorrow was his precious day off. He'd planned to drink with his tailor friend. Maybe I'll cancel. Bloodshot eyes, tattered clothes, no glorious stories to share. He wasn't sure he could laugh at a friend's success stories. He stopped at a street corner bakery. Just buy some good bread and go home. Alone. A tiny luxury to sweeten himself, before his heart leaked out the other side of the barrier. Morning off. Aldo was supposed to wake refreshed to birdsong. Instead, the magical pollen had left him with a burning nose and a throat like a desert. He stared at a ceiling stain, contemplating not moving. Even his cheap lodgings had a basic insect-repelling barrier. But the landlord had cheaped out on a third-rate model. The mana waveform was erratic. From his bed, Aldo could hear the stone's high-frequency whine inaudible to normal people. But torture to an inspector's trained ear. That circuit would stop humming if you wired it parallel instead of series. He caught himself tracing patterns in the air. Forced himself to stop. He didn't want to think about barriers on his day off. By afternoon, he succumbed to his friend's insistent invitation and dragged himself to the Golden Wheat Tavern. Hey, Aldo. Over here. His childhood friend Leonard, a tailor who'd recently branched into adventurer armor repair, waved from the noisiest table. You look like hell. You alive? Your face is kind of blue. Botanical garden inspection. Magical pollen allergy. Couldn't sleep. Side effect of the medicine they gave me, probably. Aldo grabbed an ale and downed it. The cold sting was his only comfort. Tough gig, being a bottom-tier bureaucrat. Hey. I just got a commission to process dragon leather from a B-rank adventurer. Tight deadline, but 30 gold coins. Pure profit, baby. Leonard's stories were always bright. Success. Rewards. Dreams. Women. They sounded like a foreign language to Aldo. He nodded along, tracing condensation on his glass. Then he saw it. The door sensor barrier at the tavern entrance had an odd reddish tint. Hey, Leonard. When did that barrier start looking like that? Huh? What are you talking about? Looks normal. Anyway, I'm thinking of opening a shop in the Noble District. That's not normal. That red tint means the internal circuit is backfeeding. In less than an hour, when someone walks through that door, there'll be a small explosion. Leonard sighed. Come on, Aldo. It's your day off. Don't bring your work here. The owner pays for inspections. Let the pros handle it. I know. I know everyone has their own responsibility. But once he noticed, he couldn't unnotice. The irregular flickering clawed at his nerves. If it exploded, the old couple near the entrance would get hurt. Wait for me. He walked to the counter. I'm a barrier inspector. The entrance barrier has a circuit fault. It's dangerous. Let me adjust it. Huh? You're a customer. Don't mess with my stuff. Inspection was done last month. Free. 5 minutes. If someone gets hurt, your reputation won't recover. Ignoring Leonard's protests, Aldo pulled out his portable tools. He crouched at the entrance, tinkering with the stone. Drunk patrons bumped into him, cursing. Asterisk again. What am I doing, asterisk? Working for free, on his day off, being hated, fixing barriers. He burned his fingertips on the bare circuits, resetting the mana flow. Click, the barrier returned to a calm blue. Done. No more explosion. The owner mumbled about nosy customers and disappeared into the back. Leonard looked at him with cold eyes. You've got a self-destructive personality, you know that? That's why you're chained to a dirty, low-paying job. Value your own time. Hey, join my shop. Be an apprentice. No. I'm fine. Leonard meant well. But there was an invisible wall between them now. Aldo could see the cracks in the barrier, Leonard couldn't. Aldo knew the filth behind the piece, Leonard grabbed success on the stage. The rest of the ale tasted like nothing. Aldo made an excuse and left early. Walking the night capital alone. Street lamp barriers. Sewer purification barriers. Noble manor soundproofing barriers. His work and his colleagues' shortcuts lay everywhere. I wish I could go blind on my days off. He trudged back to his noisy lodgings. Tomorrow, more losing tickets waited. Still standing, he told himself. The day after his day off. Aldo cradled his heavy head not hungover, but day off sick and opened the office door. The air inside was more violent than usual. Aldo. Good morning. An eardrum-piercingly cheerful voice. Lucia, the new inspector assigned last week, cut between the desks and planted herself before him. Pristine white work uniform. Spotless magical tools. Sparkling eyes that had never inhaled a site's mud. Aldo, I read your report. The antique shop emergency repair was incredible. A bypass of that complexity, I've only seen it in textbooks. And you improvised a parallel circuit on site to stop the mana backflow. Normally third-layer bypasses need a stabilizing catalyst, but you did it without. And you handled the emergency, normalized the site same day, and came back. I admire you. Oh, the moment the magical tools resonate. The polished mana stone synchronizing with the waveform, the spark. It's like a life being born. Your voice is loud, Lucia. He avoided her gaze and dropped his bag at his dim desk. She was a super elite graduate of the Royal Academy. Why she'd chosen this office of sewer rats and grimy budget negotiations was beyond him. Oh ho. Aldo graces us. His colleague Kane poked his head over the partition. Same hiring year. Kane's hands were always clean because he was a genius at falsifying records and politicking. Heard about the tavern yesterday. Volunteering your day off for a free inspection? You're too kind. Now. The owners filed a complaint saying the Bureau tried to cover up an inspection mistake by sneaking in on a holiday. What? Aldo's sore fingers trembled with rage. Don't worry. I apologized for your unauthorized action. That makes another favor I'm owed. Kane smirked, spinning his expensive mana pen. He always did this, routing troublesome sites to Aldo while claiming the easiest inspections for himself. Selling his numbers to management. Aldo. A word. Chief Belaze's voice from the back office. Ominously unhappy tone. Aldo. I'm formally assigning Lucia's training to you. Sir? I'm already overloaded. Decision made. She's future executive material. Let her learn some mud. Some. Understood? Also your site today. The parchment read, Royal Central Prison, Underground Sealing Zone. Chief, Kane handled this site last month. Kane's report noted micro-resonance but deemed observation sufficient. The guards report strange noises. Take Lucia, reconfirm thoroughly. Try not to embarrass yourself in front of our promising recruit. And especially don't damage Kane's reputation. Aldo's stomach burned. When Kane marked something for observation, it was a minefield he'd ignored out of laziness. And when the mine couldn't be swept, Kane dumped even his own scoring sites just to shift responsibility. Now Aldo was supposed to train a rookie while fixing his peers' negligence without exposing it. Understood. He left the room. Kane grinned at him. Lucia's eyes sparkled. I heard. The underground prison. With pre-capital ruins still intact. And the Grand Seal. I never thought I'd see one alive. The literature debates whether it's 6th era or 7th era style. Which do you think it is? Maintaining mana supply for centuries. Ordinary sealing formulas would degrade. The mana cycle. The resonance core. The auxiliary inscriptions. And it's a prison, so there must be locking mechanisms. Multi-layered barriers. Mana sensing wards. Autonomous expulsion tools. If there's an ancient convergence array, I might faint. I want to see the barrier core. Copy the inscriptions. Measure the waveform. Maybe detach the stones for structural inspection. Aldo-san. Let's go already. I won't be dead weight. Probably. Aldo sighed. Lucia. One thing. He faced her squarely. Barriers aren't something you look at. You find their flaws by sound and smell. Your pretty uniform will be ruined today. Be ready for that. Eh? Yes. I'm looking forward to it. A troublesome junior. A cowardly peer. A boss who played incompetent to dodge responsibility. Aldo's mental barrier of patience felt closer to collapse than any barrier in the capital. Let's go. First stop, third basement level. We're cleaning a ditch. He walked past Lucia's excited gaze, leaving the office's rotting air behind. The prison inspection was supposed to be just Aldo and Lucia. But Chief Belays added one more. Give him some experience too. Train him thoroughly. I'm delighted, Aldo. My horoscope was top tier today. My lucky item is iron bars. Truly a prison day. Destiny, you know. A chubby man with a grating laugh and strange dance steps. Boris. His family owned a large trading company he'd bought his way in. Short. Prematurely balding. But he gazed at himself in the office mirror daily, murmuring, "This is the glow of genius." Boris was impossible. He never listened to instructions. Only showed explosive focus on whatever interested him. And genuinely believed the environment had failed his potential. Boris. Today includes Lucia's training. Please don't do anything reckless. Training? Lucia-chan will naturally grow just watching my creative work. Right? Boris winked. Lucia forced a smile and stepped back. The iron doors opened to humid cold and the weight of mana. This was where high-ranking criminals and intelligent demon lords were sealed. Kane's report said no abnormalities. This is bad. The barrier waveform is screaming. We don't have much time. Aldo touched the wallstone. Periodic microvibrations, not simple resonance like Kane wrote. Something on the other side was deliberately disturbing the waveform. Inviting external interference. Aldo. This is formulaic inversion, isn't it? Lucia flipped through her textbook with trembling fingers. She was right. Boris was staring at mold on the wall corner. Look, Aldo. This mold shape looks exactly like yesterday's pie. It's a sign. Forget the mold. Boris, measure the auxiliary stone values. Numbers are for machines. I want to feel the barrier's soul. Oh. I just had an idea for a new formula. I'll send it to the Royal Academy. Certain knighthood material. Want to hear? No. Work. Measure. Aldo, don't be so tense. That ceiling lever over there, can I try moving it? I bet it'll be more efficient. Don't touch it. Aldo's shout echoed. Boris pouted, showing zero remorse. He genuinely believed in his unrecognized genius. Converting Aldo's warnings into jealous resentment in his head. Aldo breathed deep and started patching Kane's neglected gaps. Lucia scribbled furiously beside him, but the grimy on-site emergency repairs were far from the beautiful formulas she'd studied. Lucia. This is reality. Things don't go by the book because someone cut corners. Someone did something stupid, and the distortion accumulates here. Yes. I think I understand now why Kane's report was so clean. He traced the surface without looking inside. For the first time, Lucia wore a slightly more mature expression. Then my idea was right after all. Look, I tweaked this and the stone is glowing beautifully. Boris had turned the barrier's stabilizer screw. A high-pitched shriek tore through the prison. Boris, what are you doing? It's glowing brighter. Success. Think positive, Aldo. Before he finished, heavy footsteps began from deep within the seal. Lucia. Maximum defense wall, now. You learned this. Boris, you just go look at your mirror. Aldo grabbed his tools and lunged at the red-hot mana stone. A useless boss. A cowardly peer. And this megalomaniac of a partner. The barrier might hold, but Aldo's will and lifespan were shattering first. The prison air froze. Sparks flew from the stabilizer Boris had tampered with. The geometric seal pattern crumbled. Thud, thud. Footsteps from behind the heavy stone door. A high-ranking demon, imprisoned for centuries, stirred. The leaking mana pressure alone made Lucia drop to her knees, hyperventilating. Aldo. Look at the purple light pouring from the gap. My adjustment made the barrier shine beyond its limits. This is a discovery. Woohoo! Boris clapped, understanding 0% of the situation. The stone is glowing because it's about to explode. Boris, move. Aldo shoved Boris aside and dove for the white-hot mana stone. Hot. His work gloves scorched. But if he let go, the capital would fall. Lucia. Recite the standard resealing formula. I'll force-feed the mana. B. But I've never done real combat. Get rich quick. Do it. His shout shook Lucia into chanting. Aldo wired 3 spare stones in series a makeshift mana dam. The proper circuit required expensive silver-gold thread. He had old brass wire. Lock. He channeled mana through the wire, jammed it into the crumbling formula. A painful shriek rang through the stone door, followed by the demon's miserable howl. Minutes passed. The purple light faded. Silence returned. Aldo's improvised circuit was charred black. It's over. He collapsed on the spot. Heart pounding. Lucia sat crying. Boris adjusted his hair in a mirror, saying, my inspiration and your labor the perfect collaboration. 3 hours later, back at the bureau. And what's this? Chief Belays pointed at the report on his desk. Unbelievable content, asterisk during Inspector Boris's barrier efficiency experiment. Senior Inspector Aldo panicked and performed inappropriate emergency measures. Burning 3 precious spare stones, asterisk. Written by Boris. Chief, listen. I was trying to draw out the barrier's 120% potential. But Aldo was bound by old-fashioned thinking. He interfered. And then he broke the stones in such a barbaric way. 3. That's property damage. And he yelled at me and Lucia-chan. Power harassment. Boris genuinely believed he was right. In his head, the crisis had been a performance. Exactly, Aldo. Pathetic for a veteran. Taking it out on the new guy? Kane jumped in. Boris is right. Your grubby methods made things worse. Besides, you had no business digging into what I cleared last month. Kane was riding Boris's delusion to cover his own negligence. Lucia. You saw no abnormality with your own eyes, right? So it must be Aldo's mistake. Or, did the new hire's nerves keep her from seeing anything? Lucia looked between Aldo, the chief, Boris the noble's son, and smirking Kane. I didn't see well. I'm sorry. She bowed her head. Aldo couldn't blame her. Fresh recruit, pressured by a rich son and their top performer. Anyone would fold. Aldo. The equipment damage comes out of your salary. And a week's suspension to write a formal apology. Kane and Boris exchanged smirks. Aldo left without a word. He'd saved the world, and no one saw. Worse, he was punished for it. I'll quit. Really? Go far away. Even as he thought it, his hand reached into his bag for the next site list. Northern District, Residential Pest Barrier. If he quit today, the demon in that prison would be free next week. The weight of invisible justice crushed him like a curse. Aldo calculated the approximate amount of the fine being deducted from his pay and looked up at the sky. Cutting this month's food budget wouldn't be enough. His plan for a new winter coat evaporated. This is hopeless. The office air was thick with Boris's self-importance and Kane's social climbing chatter. Aldo grabbed his assignment sheet and escaped outside. His destination was the Northeast, a cramped working-class residential district. No giant mana cannons or high-ranked demon seals here. Just low-power living barriers to keep rats out and sewage stench down. Achoo! The dust was fierce. He knelt and pried open the cover of a grimy manna stone in an alley corner. "Hey, Inspector! Here to take more money? We're cutting our bread budget to pay your salary." Curses rained from windows. After yesterday, these words stung deep. I don't do this for fun. But arguing wouldn't make their lives easier. He silently brushed the mud-caked stone. Then he noticed. The seal on the adjacent stone had been pried off. Someone had run a thin silver thread from the gap, an informal, unauthorized circuit to stabilize manna from outside. This wasn't random tampering. The circuit pattern, the manna control, he recognized it. Someone from the Bureau had done private work without paperwork. Cain? Rumor had it Cain did off-the-books upgrades for wealthy patrons and merchants, taking bribes in return. And now Aldo had proof. Hey. You're Aldo. The one covered in fat at the guild the other day. He turned. Garum, the dismantling chief, stood there in civilian clothes. Off duty. Garum. What brings you here? My house is up ahead. What are you doing in all that mud? No one's watching. Stamp it and go home. Garum glanced at the freshly cleaned stone. If I cut corners, the slime backflows. Humph. The guild people call you a cheap bureaucrat. But the chimera poison I processed this morning was gone. And the barrier output is more stable than before. Garum pulled a small paper bundle from his coat and tossed it into Aldo's bag. Huh? Good monster jerky from the dismantling floor. End cuts that can't be sold, but nutritious. Aldo. Scrubbing stones when no one's watching is something fools do. Garum spat and walked away without looking back. But if I don't scrub, the city dies. Aldo whispered to no one. The jerky in his bag was still faintly warm. Boris dumped responsibility on him. Cain laughed at him. The chief fined him. But his work had reached one stubborn old man. All right. Aldo quietly photographed Cain's tampering with his recording crystal. He didn't know if he'd have the courage to report it. But in this unfair world, having a weapon or two couldn't hurt. He knelt again, reached for the next stone. The deduction notice arrived. Aldo's dinner became Garum's jerky and bread harder than yesterday. The cost of the stones Boris had destroyed carved 30% from his salary. I also need new insulating gloves. He stared at his hole-ridden gloves. Boris distributed the expensive sweets his family sent to the office. Chatting happily with Cain about next-generation barrier theory. None came Aldo's way. Even if they had, he doubted he could stomach sweets seasoned with their arrogance. The next day, Aldo was assigned to inspect the high-ranking official residential district near the palace. Security was tight. Verifying his pass took an hour. Inspector. This barrier links to the palace defense network. I'd rather not have a lowborn like you touch it, but the law says I must. Don't cause trouble. Finish fast. The guard's tone was ice. *1. Sentence. 2. Many, asterisk. But. Aldo silently opened the inspection hatch of the palace outer shell relay embedded under the cobblestone. His heart stopped. Not figuratively. Fine cracks spider-webbed across the relay's surface, not age-related. The powerful mana from inside the palace and the living mana from outside were interfering, fatiguing the structure itself. Guard. This needs an immediate full resynchronization. Left alone, the palace defense alarm will misfire tonight. Ha! Nonsense. Inspector Cain from headquarters filed a report saying it was perfectly adjusted just 2 days ago. Are you lying to claim credit? Again, Kane. Kane had rewritten the numbers to look pretty and called it done. Aldo tried to argue, but the guard wouldn't listen, shoving his spear forward. A voice cut through. I want to hear this man out. Guard, lower your spear. Behind him stood a man in sharp military dress. Short silver hair. Piercing eyes aimed not at Aldo, but at the open inspection hatch. Vilfret, Vice Commander of the Barrier Corps. You said you see a crack and need resynchronization? Yes. The 12th resonance band is out of phase. Left alone, backflow is certain. Vilfret studied Aldo's grimy fingertips and cheap worn-out meter. You detected this with that instrument? Headquarters report didn't mention this deviation. Instruments only give averages. I judge by sound. Vilfret's eyes widened. He crouched, pressed his ear to the hatch. Seconds of silence. Indeed. It sings. An unpleasant high frequency, like death's wings. What's your name? Aldo. Just an inspector from the bureau. Just an inspector, he says. Vilfret looked at him and smiled thinly. His eyes held none of the status or money judgment Aldo was used to. Only respect for genuine skill. Aldo. Come to the palace tomorrow. I want your dirty gloves to inspect the king's chambers. Eh? Someone like me can't. I no longer trust headquarters' clean reports. What we need is a man who finds flaws through experience, knowledge, and conviction. A man like you. Vilfret left without looking back. In Aldo's hand was his cheap meter and an invitation to the palace heavier than any deduction notice. Back at the office that evening, Kane was pale, scattering papers. Aldo. What did you say at the palace? The Corps is inquiring. They're asking who filed the false report. I just did my regular inspection. And listened. Aldo sat at his desk, where traces of Boris's pastry grease lingered, and quietly set down his bag. Tomorrow, anything could happen. More blame. Or maybe. One thing was certain, tonight's jerky seemed like it would have more flavor than yesterday's. In the carriage to the palace, Lucia sat across from him, fidgeting nervously. Her gaze fixed on the recording. Crystal in Aldo's bag, the evidence of Kane's unauthorized circuit boosting for wealthy patrons. I'm not using that yet, Lucia. Not the right time. Aldo touched the cool crystal. It's not about taking him down. It's that unauthorized circuits always breed cracks. Today he's boosting a patron's barrier. Tomorrow the distortion surfaces somewhere in the capital. When you find a crack, you record it. That's all. Lucia stared at him. Aldo. Have you always swallowed poison alone like this? The prison incident, the office. I stayed silent, and you never blamed me. Even now, you're thinking about the capital's cracks, not yourself. It's not that noble. With you, I just didn't want to see a talented rookie quit in her first week. He looked out the window. Lucia's tense gaze softened. They passed the palace checkpoints. Vilfret led them to the royal private chamber, the stillness room. Lavish decoration. Perfect mana circulation. Numbers showed 0 issues. But Aldo felt nauseous the moment he entered. He couldn't name the wrongness. The meter was stable. Lucia confirmed no abnormalities by the book. But something snagged in his ear. Vice Commander. May I have time to check the base directly? Your call. I've decided to trust your senses. Aldo knelt, running his fingers along the door seam, tracking the mana flow by sound. Smooth. 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 Then a single point where the flow stalled. Here. He rummaged in his bag. Boris had shoved a box at him that morning. Quality stone from my father. Use it. When Aldo opened it, the stone glowed an unnatural pale blue. Lucia. Do you know what this is? Lucia held her hand over it, chanting. Her face drained of color. Resonance induction stone. Modified to forcibly destabilize surrounding barriers in response to external signals. If this had been placed near the palace circuit, you would have been framed as the one who destroyed the barrier. Aldo pieced it together. Boris had planted this to frame him. But if it resonated, seeking strong mana intake. Vice Commander. May I perform a somewhat rough inspection? Permission granted. He slid the stone into the door gap where the flow had stalled. The stone shrieked, vibrating violently. And from the door's hidden recesses, it dragged out a silver circuit invisible to the naked eye. Wilfrit went silent. Behind the door, an elaborate parasitic formula was woven into the palace's legitimate barrier, funneling information outward. Aldo studied the pattern. The convergence point. The weaving style. He recognized it. Vice Commander. There's something I'd like you to verify. He produced the recording crystal. It glowed, projecting the evidence of Kane's off-the-books work onto the palace corridor. The unauthorized circuit I found in the lower district and this parasitic seal here. Same weaving habit. Same mana convergence. Both from the same hand. Inspector Kane. He was privatizing even the palace barrier to sell insider information. Silence. Wilfrit's eyes had passed anger. They were now cold judgment. Female inspector. Is his account accurate or false? Lucia looked straight at Aldo. No falsehood. The resonance induction stone's mana convergence pattern and this parasitic formula's weave are a perfect match. Magi engineering confirms one hand. And Boris's act of giving this stone to Aldo constitutes treason against the crown. Her voice rang clear through the corridor. Aldo pocketed the blackened stone fragments. Boris's trap had, ironically, exposed the kingdom's rot. Malice, he mused, was all about how you used it. The next morning, the bureau office was wrapped in unaccustomed silence. Gone were Boris's pointless boasts and Kane's social laughter. In their place sat 2 empty desks and a pale, trembling Chief Belaise. Ah, Aldo, good morning. Or should I say, Lord Aldo. The chief approached with rubbing hands. Clutching the shredded remains of the deduction notice that had tormented Aldo yesterday. I heard about the palace. Your great victory. Kane and Boris are in the knight's interrogation room. There's no end to their crimes, parasitic barriers, bribery. Well, I always knew you were capable. How about a senior inspector position? Or deputy chief? Aldo wiped the dust from his desk with an old cloth. No trace of Boris's pastry grease. No pile of Kane's defective reports. Chief. If I became deputy chief, could I still go to the field? The field? Of course not. A deputy chief sits in the office and delegates. Let the grunts handle the dirty work. Then no thank you. Excuse me. He shouldered his bag and nodded to Lucia, who waited at the door. Her uniform was no longer white. The soot from yesterday's palace and layers of sight mud had dyed it into something more like an inspector's. Let's go, Lucia. What's today's schedule? Yes. 3 sewer routes this morning, and Garam's dismantling yard this afternoon. Let's do our best. Lucia answered with a newfound strength different from her earlier glitter. In the capital's back alleys, they knelt before the mud-buried foundations. Passers-by clicked their tongues about wasted taxes, avoiding them. Aldo. It makes me a little sad. I know what you've done, but nobody else does. Lucia scraped mud with her spatula, smiling wryly. That's fine. A barrier functions best when its existence is forgotten. Aldo took out his brush and polished the stone surface. The mana circuit regained its faint blue light, too subtle for anyone to notice. Looking up, he saw the palace spires glowing in winter sun. While Vice Commander Vilfret dealt with political cleanup inside, Aldo was here, supporting the city's foundation. He couldn't be a hero. Couldn't be rich or powerful. Tomorrow, he'd surely be cursed again, stomach aching, nose running, polishing stones no one cared about. But beside him stood a junior who shared the mud. That was enough. No abnormalities. He stamped the inspection seal firmly and stood. Next site. If we leave it too long, the slime backflows. The barrier wrapped around the capital continued its quiet work. Noticed by no one, faithfully protecting the city.